Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. This is finally the video that I intended to make, but this was supposed to come out yesterday, but I got caught up with other things as I was doing the study for this video, and I ended up making this video, being popular with the world and bringing worldliness into the gospel, talking all about these people that are in the world, but technically members of the church, and trying to marry the two together. And then after that, I came across this very strange story. I did a video for it for members only, where, of course, more things going on at BYU, where you have this group that was having a back-to-school celebration, but it had to be, LGBTQ and celebrating that and going to BYU. And you had these people dressing up as angels to protect them and drown out like a protest that was going on against the event. There was a drag show and stuff, and the type of values that BYU stands for. That's what these students were celebrating. And so anyway, you can catch that on members only, and then make sure to check out the one that I did yesterday. Okay, so moving on. Okay, Doctrine and Covenants 112. This is going to be the theme of this video, and specifically one word: whirlwind. Okay, whirlwind. What's a whirlwind? It's like a tornado. And there's been a lot of interesting tornado and wind events that have been going on during President Nelson's presidency. I just found out something as I was doing my other channel, Watch for the Signs, when it comes to hurricanes, that seems to relate to President Nelson. So we're going to be looking at strange tornadoes. We're going to be looking at hurricanes. We're going to be looking at a few different things in this video. Okay. So let me read the verses here. Verse 23 to 25. Verily, verily, I say unto you, darkness covereth the earth, and gross darkness the minds of the people, and all flesh has become corrupt before my face. Again, this was given back in the 1800s, and things have obviously only gotten worse since that time. Again, just look at BYU and what's going on there. Not just the students, the students have a big problem. There's a big problem going on at BYU. I know that the Quick channel, I watch him from time to time. He really covers BYU and what's going on. It's not just the students, it's also the faculty. And I don't know. It just makes it so I don't want any of my kids to go to BYU. Of course they can if they want to. I'm not going to stop them, but they might as well just stay here and go somewhere here in Kansas. It'd probably be more wholesome than going to BYU. So, yeah, darkness is covering the earth, and gross darkness the minds of the people. And I would say not just of the world, but people that claim to be members of the church, right? Behold, vengeance cometh speedily upon the inhabitants of the earth, a day of wrath, a day of burning, a day of desolation, of weeping, of mourning, and of lamentation. And as a whirlwind, he shall come upon all the face of the earth, saith the Lord. And upon my house shall it begin, and from my house shall it go forth, saith the Lord. So there's different ways to look at this. It seems like when he's saying whirlwind, he's talking in like a metaphorical way, because he's saying that all these things, day of wrath, burning, desolation, weeping, all those things will come as a whirlwind upon the earth. And that it's going to begin on the Lord's house, right? Now, there could be a literal component to the whirlwind, because if the Lord wanted to give a sign to the prophet or to us who are watching that it's started, he may do it in the form of a whirlwind. It's like, oh, here's a whirlwind. Remember what I said in D&C 112, that everything's going to start as a whirlwind, or these things are going to come in as a whirlwind. So here's your symbol. Be on the lookout. So that's the approach that I'm taking as I move forward with the video. That maybe there's been an event, an actual whirlwind that kind of initiated this process. Oh, and by the way, the BYU, someone explain to me, to go to BYU, you have to have an ecclesiastical endorsement, typically from a bishop. If you're a member of the church, it's through your bishop. If you're a non-member, it can be through your own church if you're like active in your church. Otherwise, if you can't get one from them, then you go to the LDS bishop, the ward boundaries that you're in. My understanding is that this endorsement is to be like, yeah, this person is good and can go to BYU. The implication is that if some people get endorsed, other people do not, right? Because I would assume it'd be on morality grounds and worthiness, right? Otherwise, what's the point of the endorsement? What's the point? It's supposed to be kind of like a um, like a sifter, right? Like, no, sorry, I cannot endorse you for BYU. You, yes, I can. Who are these bishops that are letting in these students that are LDS, that are actively promoting, condoning, advocating for these different issues? Like that's what I want to know, because I feel like that would be part of the solution. How are these people getting into BYU that are just openly and just ragingly going, supporting these things and pushing it in everybody's faces? Who are these bishops? I know the bishop can't like see everything, but usually when you're looking at your ward, you kind of know who everybody is and where they stand, and the ones that are more worldly and the ones that aren't, and the ones that like worldly philosophies. Like, I don't know. That's my question, but let's move on. Sorry. Okay, so I went to the student manual. This is the Institute student manual for Doctrine and Covenants. And I just wanted to see what it said about these verses. This section is called, and upon my house shall it begin. Doctrine and Covenants 1:12-23 echoes Isaiah's ancient prophecy describing apostasy among the inhabitants of the earth. Doctrine and Covenants 1:12-24-26 indicates the order in which God's judgments will occur. Elder Neal A. Maxwell, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, taught, quote, "The Lord has clearly indicated that his purifying and sifting judgment would begin first at the house of God and then proceed outward to the world. In the revelation recorded in Doctrine and Covenants 1:12, the Lord warned church members living in Kirtland, Ohio, that if they did not repent of their wickedness, they would be the first to receive his punishments." Okay, so this would seem to indicate that it's kind of started from the time of Kirtland, Ohio. I'm not sure. I'm going to read you something that Ezra Taft Benson said in just a minute. Well, okay, right now I guess I ordered it, so I'm going to read him first. Okay, now this is the talk that I did the video on yesterday. And if you missed that video, you should really watch it because it's really good. But I'm going to read just a small part of this talk. This is 1969 April General Conference to the humble followers of Christ. He says, "Sometimes we hear someone refer to a division in the church. In reality, the church is not divided. It simply means that there are some who, for the time being, at least, are members of the church, but not in harmony with it. These people have a temporary membership and influence in the church, but unless they repent, they'll be missing the final membership records, or missing when the final membership records are recorded. It is well that our people understand this principle so they will not be misled by those apostates within the church who have not yet repented or been cut off. But there is a cleansing coming." Okay, so Ezra Taft Benson seems to be, and I would go with him. Now, this is when he's a member of the 12. He's not yet president of the church, but I would go with what he says. The Lord says that his vengeance will be poured out upon the inhabitants of the earth, and upon my house shall it begin. And from my house shall it go forth, according to the Lord. First among those first among those among you, saith the Lord, who have professed to know my name and have not known me. And then he says, I look forward to that cleansing. Its need within the church is becoming increasingly apparent. So, and we all know Ezra Taft Benson, he was like the president of calling out the Gadianton robbers in society, but he's also talking about it here in the church. Well, maybe in some cases actual Gadianton robbers, secret combinations, but more broadly, he's just talking about those people in the church that it's like, what the heck are you doing here? What are you doing here? You're not really doing it. You have other goals and other purposes in mind, and you guys, who these people are. Sometimes they're cultural, they're born into an LDS family, and so they just kind of like stay there because it's just like they're just going with the flow. Sometimes there's people that come in that it's like they clearly don't like the church. It's almost like they want the church to change to them, but they still go, right? There's all sorts of different scenarios. So he's talking to like all of them basically. Anyway, the rest of this talk, you guys, is just fire. So again, you should watch that video that I did yesterday. Okay, so Ezra Taft Benson, this is something still yet to happen. And then Neal A. Maxwell. For some reason, it wouldn't let me highlight on this screen, but it's okay. So Neal A. Maxwell, 1988, April General Conference, for I will lead you along. He says, so let us look at ourselves. For the church, the scripture suggests both an accelerated sifting and accelerated spiritual and numerical growth, with all this preceding the time when the people of God will be armed with righteousness. This is something that we've heard recently in General Conference, right? Something similar to this. David A. Bednar especially has been talking about being, I think it's armed with the power of God in great glory. I would say that it's pretty much the same thing. Not weapons, and when the Lord's glory will be poured out upon them. The Lord is determined to have a tried, pure, and proven people. And there is nothing that the Lord thy God shall take in his heart but that he will do it. How can we, as individual members of the church, survive spiritually if we do not honor our covenants? See, this is another big thing that they're talking about right now. The covenant path, getting on and staying on the covenant path, keeping our covenants. And this is how we survive spiritually. They've also been hitting on the ability to receive personal revelation to survive spiritually and strengthening our spiritual foundations. How can we survive spiritually if we break outright the covenants made at the time of baptism or in the holy temples? How can we be on the Lord's side during the great division, quote unquote, if we mirror the world's materialism and selfishness? Members of the church need not and should not be alarmists. Okay, this goes back to that idea that I hit on a lot of times, that there's those people out in the church, especially in this community, on Facebook and sometimes on YouTube, that are just panicking. They're causing other people to panic, and they're raising alarm bells that should, like, in terms of like disasters or World War III or stuff like this, right? Members of the church need not and should not be alarmists. They need not be deflected from quietly and righteously pursuing their daily lives. Quote, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Right? So if you see people that are being alarmists and God doesn't give us the spirit of fear, then what spirit is that coming from? That's maybe a question that we should ask ourselves when there's people that are being fear mongers. I'm just going to repeat it over and over again. The general authorities never tell us to fear, and they tell us to have hope and look forward, and the brightest days of the church are ahead of us, and the righteous are going to be protected, by living within their covenants. So this is really the attitude that all of us should have. Okay, so let's do it like this. So the first time that this concept really came on my radar was when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was playing football, and we were doing 2-a-day practices. It was summertime. School hadn't started yet, because look at this. This is August 11th, 1999. And I was in the locker room after practice, and someone said that there was a tornado downtown. And that blew my mind, because all growing up in Salt Lake, I felt like I grew up with the certainty that we would never really have to worry about tornadoes in the Salt Lake Valley because of the mountains. And although tornadoes do happen in the state of Utah, they're usually out in the boonies. Utah only has I think an average of 2 or 3 tornadoes a year, but that certainly wouldn't happen in the Salt Lake Valley, and even more than that, not in downtown Salt Lake, because downtown Salt Lake is right up against the mountain. Let me show you Salt Lake City. Let's go to Google Maps. Let's go to satellite. So here's downtown, and look, the mountains are just right here. And I was always taught that it was because of these mountains that these help prevent tornadoes from occurring. But that's exactly what happened. There was a tornado. And what's interesting about this... back up. So after this happened, school started, and I was in seminary, and somebody had brought this up. They brought up the downtown tornado, and then they brought up Doctrine and Covenants 112, verse 24, where it says, "As a whirlwind, it'll come upon the face of the earth, and upon my house shall it begin." And that always stuck with me. I don't know that this was the symbol that started that sifting, but it could be. This is after President Benson's talk, how he viewed it as a future event. And so if the Lord was going to give us and the president of the church and the first presidency, quorum of the 12, a sign, a symbol of that scripture, this would be pretty appropriate. An earthquake, a very, very unlikely earthquake in downtown Salt Lake. And the path of the earthquake, actually, it brushed by the temple in Temple Square. There was minimal damage, but it basically touched the temple. That, you guys, that is a sign. That is a sign from God. Okay, when you have a very unlikely earthquake or hurricane, oh my gosh, tornado in a very unlikely place. It's already pretty rare for tornadoes to hit major metropolitan areas. It doesn't typically happen. But on top of that, here along the Wasatch Front, an even more unlikely place, I'm pretty sure that this is a sign. Especially because only a few months later, we would be entering the new millennium. Right? Just a few months later, it'd be the turn of the century, the turn of the millennium. This was August 11th, 1999. So yeah, we had this happen. And this century that we're currently in has been wild. It's just been insane. We're only in the 23rd year. Yeah, because we are now in the 23rd year of this century, and already so much has happened. When you think about wars, not wars on the scale of World War I and II, but we're not done yet. but we've had the global war on terrorism, of which I was a part. I know people that died. So we've had wars. We've had just incredible catastrophes. Um, so anyway, all that after this happened. So I don't know. This might be that symbol that initiated everything, for all I know. Not going to say that for sure. Let's see. Did I have something to show on here? Another interesting thing that happened in conjunction with this tornado is that the only video that we have from Temple Square of it happening was this wedding that was going on. Right, these two were getting married. They had a videographer, and as the video was going, this is when the tornado struck, and they were all okay. But what I think is interesting is that you have this symbol right here, okay, of a marriage, which we know is a symbol of the second coming. Christ is the groom, the bridegroom. The bride is the church of Christ. It's his church. So this was happening when, and of course, you know, there's always weddings happening there, but this is the only video that we have there on Temple Square. There's other videos all over the place, but none that are actually on Temple Square. There's just this one, and I would encourage you to watch that video. It's interesting. I didn't know this until I did the study for this video, that the governor's desk right here, let me pull up the tweet. This is U.S. State Capitol Twitter account. Remembering the tornado that ripped through Salt Lake City 22 years ago today, the tornado desk in the governor's ceremonial office was built from the trees on the Capitol grounds, which were toppled by the tornado. So I just thought that that was kind of cool. You know, this is like a memorial of that event, right? And it's in the Utah State Capitol. Okay. Now, what's interesting, this is weird. Okay, this is weird. 22 years later, okay, 22 years later, there's another tornado along the Wasatch Front. This is rare. It wasn't as big as the other one, and this one was in North Salt Lake City. There's Salt Lake City, and then right above it is North Salt Lake City. It is right here. Okay, it's basically like this area right here, North Salt Lake. This is where this tornado occurred. And let's see. What happened with this one is that this happened on September 2nd, 2021. Let's look at the calendar. Okay, I have it pulled up. 2021, September 2nd, this day, right? So what's interesting about that is that 2 days before that, you had Elder Dean Davies of the 70 that passed away. And the day that he passed away was 2 days before, Tuesday, August 31st. And guess what? Guess where he died? In North Salt Lake, following a battle with cancer. So we have this 70. He dies in North Salt Lake, where he's from. And then 2 days later, in that same area, that same city, there's this tornado that happens. Now, I'm not going to say that that's coincidence. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's like another small sign. Maybe the intensity of the sifting is picking up at this point. I don't know. I've looked for, you know, was there anything special about Elder Dean Davies? Well, let me read you just a little bit. I don't know if this is the answer, but okay, so excuse me. He was sustained a General Authority 70 on October 3rd, 2020, and served until his death on August 31st, 2021. Prior to that, he was first counselor to Bishop Gerald Koss in the presiding bishopric, and before that, he was second counselor in the presiding bishopric, counselor to Bishop Gary E. Stevenson, who is now an apostle. At the time of his calling to the presiding bishopric, he was employed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as the managing director of the Special Projects Department, which oversees real estate, temple design, and temple construction. So that's an interesting name for that department, Special Projects. And it says temple design and temple construction, but it also says real estate. And you'd have to imagine that that would include the church lands in Missouri and other places. Anyway, at the time of the announcement of a 4-year closure of the Salt Lake Temple, the great pioneer era temple, an icon of Latter-day Saint faith, quote, the media had questions. What would happen to the Angel Moroni statue? Remember, because the trumpet fell out of his hands. How would workers support a 187 million pound temple so that they could upgrade the foundation to withstand earthquakes? Would films replace the live endowment sessions? During the question and answer session after the news conference, one man tried to lift the media's eyes to a broader vision. You're missing the big picture, he said. And this is Elder Davies, or Bishop Dean M. Davies. The church had a grander plan for Temple Square. In fact, church leaders' definition of what that term meant was growing. 2, something that remains overlooked by nearly all media and church members. Quote, there haven't been really too many questions about the renovation of the plaza to the east, said Bishop Dean M. Davies. What he's talking about is you have traditionally what you think of as Temple Square is this block of Salt Lake City. Okay. It's surrounded by a wall. You have a few different entrances. You have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you might also include the ones that are right in front of the temple. Sometimes these gates are open, and then there was the one that I can't remember. Whatever. There's like 4 or 5 basically. That's not the point. So this is Temple Square, right? The temple, the tabernacle, the assembly hall. There used to be the North Visitor Center and then a South Visitor Center, and there were things over here like the Temple Annex and stuff like that. Okay, whatever. And then later, the church purchased this part of Main Street, or this section of Main Street, to almost like expand in a way Temple Square. And this was a very beautiful area it is a very beautiful area to walk. It has a great view of the temple from the front. And then over here to the east, you have all these other church buildings. You have the church office building, right? You have the administration building. This is like the offices of the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12. The Joseph Smith Memorial Building. There's a lot of things that go on in there and so forth. The Relief Society building right here. Okay, so what they're doing as part of this renovation, not only are they working on the temple and redoing a lot of stuff on Temple Square, like the North Visitor Center is gone now. There's going to be other visitor centers, but not only are they changing this, they're basically making it so, I hate it when that happens, refresh. They're making it so that all of this is essentially Temple Square. Like all of this is, in other words, all of this is going to be integrated. I think the walls are going to still be around this section of it. But let's just read what he says. So again, he says, there haven't been really too many questions about the renovation of the plaza to the east, said Bishop Dean M. Davies, who then was first counselor in the presiding bishopric. Quote, that's a pretty significant effort also. And I would add on that is that we want to make the plaza area to the east of the temple even more public and friendly. There will be new seating areas and new corridors. It's something that you ought to contemplate also. It's not just the temple, but it includes all the way to State Street. That will be an integral part. Uh, that will be an integral part of this as we tie together Temple Square into one great whole. So I take from that like the idea is that these two blocks would be Temple Square. Uh, he already had redefined what Temple Square is, adding an entire city block, but he wasn't done. Quote, especially, we want to continue to emphasize that this is the Savior's house and this is his church. And so we will make every effort to introduce some new thematic elements that will help visitors to Salt Lake. We want them to think of Salt Lake just as easily as they think of Jerusalem or the Vatican as a place where Christianity really has its heart. So that's interesting. That's a really interesting statement, right? Because in some ways, you kind of already think of Salt Lake, at least as the capital of the church, the headquarters. But he's saying where Christianity really has its heart. That's really interesting. And it makes me wonder if, well, no, I don't know. I don't know. Make of that what you will. So going back to the tornado, he seemed to be important in terms of temples and stuff like that in church land. And so I don't know, but there was a tornado 2 days after he passed away where he was from. Make of that what you will. Okay, now I wanted to point out hurricanes. Okay, because on my other channel, Watch for the Signs, I'm putting together a new tracker for that channel where I'm just looking at all these different natural disasters, and something came up as I was filling out my spreadsheet for hurricanes by year. So what you have here is you have, starting with the most severe, you have category 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 hurricanes. After that is tropical storms. After that is tropical depressions, right? And this is just a total of how many have happened in that year. So this year we've had 2 category 4s, 1 category 3, 3 category 2s, and 5 category 1s, and 10 tropical storms. And what you may notice here is that when President Nelson became prophet, that was kind of a big year for hurricanes. 2018, he became prophet in early January 2018. So in these, and this hurricane season would have been well into that, the first year of his presidency. So you had 4 category 5s. You have to go all the way back to 2005 to see that many category 5s. And it ties for first place for this century. I haven't done anything beyond 2000, the year 2000. So it had this tied for first place with category 5s. It's the first time this century that we've had 8 category 4s. 2015 beats that, but it holds the number 2 place, or it holds second place. And then we also had another year, 2020, a really important year that had 8 as well, which that's interesting. No category 3s, 6 category 2s, and that's the most category 2s out of this entire century so far. 3 category 1s, and then 17 tropical storms. You just can't make it up. 17. Okay. What you'll also notice, let me zoom out a little bit. Let's go to 125. Okay, so tropical depressions are on the weaker part of this scale, right? You'll notice I have all these highlighted with conditional formatting to where if there's more hurricanes, then it's going to be in a darker color. If there's less, then it's lighter. So you'll notice that from like 2010 and before, there were a lot of tropical depressions, and things have kind of like died off in the years following. There's not so many tropical depressions anymore. And you'll notice that on the opposite side over here, especially with category 4s, starting in about 2014, it's like nothing but red. So on this side down here in the past, at the early part of the century, lots of tropical depressions, which are the weaker ones, and then those go away over time. Whereas with category 4s, those only increase with time. So I guess what you could say, and I'm no meteorologist, but it seems that storms and hurricanes are becoming more intense and more frequent. You'll notice that for tropical storms, you have this big blue area right here, meaning that there's more tropical storms as of late. So I would guess that a lot of these tropical depressions are probably converting into these stronger storms, whether they're tropical storms or something else. And then, you have this solid block right here of category 5s from 2014 to 2019, although we haven't had any for the last couple years. So I find that really interesting, though. So during his presidency, the first year of his presidency, tied for first place for category 5s, second place for category 4s, first place category 2s. That's very interesting. It was an intense year for hurricanes that year. Okay, let's move on from that. What else do we got? Okay, so December of last year, you might remember that there was a crazy tornado outbreak in like the eastern U.S. And in particular, what happened is at first they thought that there was one tornado that went for more than 200 miles. I have more updated information since that time, but if it would have been one tornado, then it would have been the longest a tornado has ever traveled in history. Okay, if it turns out that it was two tornadoes that were like on the same path. But one thing I want to point out that's really interesting about this path, let me pull this up in another window and zoom in. Okay, so listen to these states and just kind of look at the map. So technically it started over here in Arkansas. Okay, and by the way, this is known as the Quad State tornado because of this right here. So it started in Arkansas. It then went into this like little area of Missouri in the southeast, this little weird piece that hangs down like that. And then it nicked the corner of Tennessee, and then the majority of it was in Kentucky. Okay? So burn that into your brain for just a minute. Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky. Just nicking these other three. Okay, Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee. And then the majority of it in Kentucky. All right. Now, I've already done a video about this, but a lot of you probably weren't around at that time to see it. This also happens to be the same path, okay, that the 2024 eclipse is going to take. At least this shaded area is the path of totality. So if you're in this shaded area, you'll experience a full eclipse in 2024. So at the southern boundary of the path of totality, notice the path. Arkansas, this little hang down piece of Missouri, and then it nicks Tennessee, and then it goes into Kentucky. It's a parallel path. It's a parallel path. Look right there. Look right here. Sorry, it may not be too easy to see, but I'll put all these links in the description below if you want to do this yourself. And what's interesting about it is that right here, where the tornado or the two tornadoes went, it underlines where the intersection point is of the two eclipses. There's the one in 2017, which was the first eclipse, and this will be the second one. And the intersection is here in Illinois, over a place called Carbondale. Right here. I wish I had a better thing to show you. I did in that other video, but anyway, you'll just have to trust me on that. Because the other one came this way, right? It went over Kansas City, which included Independence, Missouri, and then to the north, Adam-on-Diamond. And by the way, these two eclipses, I've done another video about this. You'll just have to just do a search for Eclipse on my channel and you'll find it. But these two eclipses go over major church historical places in New York, in Ohio, because this goes over the Kirtland Temple. The one that we had in 2017 went over all the major church sites in Missouri. And if it did not take the exact path that it did, it wouldn't have. If it had just been a couple miles south or a couple miles north, it would not have included Adam-on-Diamond. If it was south, or if it was a few miles north, it wouldn't have included Independence, Missouri. It had to go on that exact path to cover all of them. It also covered far west as well. Okay, so these eclipses, I feel, should be of great significance to us as members of the church. It's already significant to like a bunch of other Christians that are watching for the signs of the times. They realize that this is an important event, but if they knew what we knew, they would lose their minds. Their heads would explode. When you go into the map at the back of your scriptures, and I did this in another video, but let me just show you what I'm talking about. Go to scriptures, go to study helps, go to church history maps. When you look at these red dots right here, okay, the eclipse goes over all of these ones that are in New York. I'm not sure about down here with Colesville, but it goes over, I believe, all these ones in Vermont, New Hampshire, and then these ones here like Fayette, Palmyra, Manchester. Okay, and then, well, wait, go back to this. And then here's the ones in Ohio. The path is going to go over this: Thompson, Hiram, Kirtland, Orange, Cleveland, Amherst. Okay, and then later you have all these sites, not the ones up here, not Nauvoo and stuff, but these ones here in Missouri. The eclipse went over all these right here. Okay, so significant. And we just had this tornado stretch that underlined, that paralleled and underlined that upcoming path of the eclipse. And like the length of it, it's like if you were to draw the center point. This isn't the best one. There was like another one, I think, but it basically perfectly underlines the crossing point, the intersection of the two eclipses. Okay, now this is the updated. This is the updated article that I found. This is the weatherstationexperts.com. Remembering the Quad State tornado of December 10th, 2021. Okay, a total of 71 confirmed tornadoes occurred across Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee on December 10th and 11th. Damage across these 5 states is estimated to be nearly $4 billion. The quad state tornado itself was actually 2 tornadoes that cut a nearly 250-mile path across Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky, including one that traveled over 165 miles. So regardless of whether it was record-breaking or not, which it wasn't, that's a long way for a tornado to travel. I looked it up in the other video, and typically, if I remember right, the average distance that a tornado will travel is like 3 miles. So 3 miles compared to 165, that's intense. Let me see if I have that video up. I'm going to put all my other videos. If you want more information, you can check out these videos. I'm going to put them in the description below. Yeah, right here. This is the one that I was talking about. X marks the spot, but what underlines the spot? So right here, this is where the tornado was, right here. Like perfectly underneath the X. So that's pretty incredible. Okay, let's go back. There are a few more things here. Quad state tornado won't be the longest ever. Using the term quad state tornadoes with an S would be more accurate, as it now appears a series of tornadoes occurred along the path of from Arkansas to Kentucky. Here's part of the path right here. Oh, I guess this would have been for one of the tornadoes. Okay. Keep going. Pretty sure there was one other thing that I highlighted, at least. Quad state tornado in rare company. While it is not unusual for tornadoes to occur in mid-December, a violent tornado outbreak, like what was seen on December 10th and 11th, is unprecedented. At 71 tornadoes, it was twice the size of the previous largest December outbreak in history. Twice the size for December. 71 tornadoes. It's another sign of the times. Yeah, okay, that's all that I got for that. And I think that's all I got for this video, actually. So the point is that during President Nelson's time as prophet, there's been a lot of weird things going on with wind, right? From hurricanes to tornadoes. A lot of things happening with the wind. And you have to wonder if maybe any of these events are a symbol of the beginning of the judgments starting upon the Lord's house. I would think so. I really think that the best candidate, if there was a symbol to initiate it, would have been the 1999 Salt Lake City tornado. That's just how I feel about it. If that's not what this was something else. It was some kind of symbol for something, you know. It could have been just a symbol for like, hey, we're about to enter the new millennium, and this is going to be the time when the millennium starts. I don't know, but there you go. Strange happenings. So anyway, make sure to check out those videos. Make sure to subscribe to Watch for Signs of the Times. On this channel, I follow like basically just it's a more generic channel for people that want to watch for signs of the times that are not members of the church, just natural disasters, war, strange occurrences, and stuff like that. So make sure to subscribe to this. And make sure to check out all the other featured channels that I have here. The most recent person that I interviewed was Mindy with Temples of Jesus. Make sure to check out her article in the Liahona. It's available online now, so you can go see it. So, all right, and then also consider becoming a member and checking out these videos where I mostly talk about toxic personalities, narcissism, and then other topics like secret combinations and like this one, LDS pop culture, where you have places like LDS Living that are recommending that, you know, we listen to these people, like this guy with the X across his face and all these other ones that, you know, fight against the church and support things that we don't support. And then all, you know, crazy happenings at BYU. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, sign up for members only. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.